Richard, you seem to be saying that we got our ability to interpret and even read Scripture in sort of the modern way that we do now from the Renaissance, but why was that necessary as opposed to simply using the Bible as the Bible?
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a great question, because you could get that impression from me that it simply came from the Renaissance. Okay, so what's better about the Renaissance than Neoplatonism? Okay, for that matter. The Renaissance was the historical cause of this. Okay, in many respects, in that it broke the stranglehold that the church had on interpretation of text. Prior to that time, Aristotle, Plato, all these texts were always interpreted by the church. But once that stranglehold was broken, a new method developed. But it wasn't a method that was entirely new. That's the point. Okay? It wasn't something that everyone said, well, we must do this now because of the influence of neo-paganism in Europe now and the reading of these ancient pagan texts. Rather, it simply began to open the door. Take Martin Luther as the example. We all know that Martin Luther read Romans chapter 1, and this was his big conversion, you know, that faith, that justification comes by faith unto faith, righteousness from God is revealed in the gospel is from faith to faith, and that line, faith to faith, what did it mean? Well, the Catholic Church during the medieval period, they had plenty of ideas of what that meant. Plenty. And it wasn't as if Martin Luther was without an interpretation of that passage. But his problem was he read the passage, and he read it as if he were a Renaissance scholar. And in other words, he asked, what did Paul mean by this? He didn't want to know what the church meant by it. They had dealt with it sufficiently in their minds, but he wanted to know what Paul meant by it. And that historically, that motif came largely, not entirely, but largely from the sort of momentum of the Renaissance. And then it made him realize that what the church had said this passage meant wasn't right, because the church was in effect saying faith unto works. And he was saying, no. What Paul says here is from beginning to end is faith unto faith, faith by faith, and so on, as you variously translate that passage in Romans 1. And so it's fascinating to see that, and then to realize that people like John Calvin was trained in law. And by this time, the study of law was also deeply influenced by the Renaissance. And so you were concerned with Roman law, and you were concerned with Greek law, and how they organized their societies, and not just ecclesiastical law, not just what the Pope said, not just what the church said. And so even he had that kind of mentality of the way to get at what a text means is by asking, what did it mean originally? What did it mean back when it was first written? And we give proper credence to what the church has said, but we don't give them absolute authority to interpret it for us. And so in many ways, we do go back. That method of the Reformation goes back earlier than the Renaissance, and it never disappeared completely, even in the medieval church. But it was highlighted, it was opened up, it was prepared for by the Renaissance movement.